Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for joining us today in this virtual realm, this social media forum for 2021. My name is Kawande Hall, and I am the program manager for social media training at the Defense Information School. And today I want to talk to you just a little bit about digital leadership and what it takes to lead in this digital space or this social media space. And so I hope to just take a little bit of your time today to kind of get into the kind of a little bit of the specifics of what it means to be a leader in this digital space. And I like to always start this discussion by introducing Mark Twain. And Mark Twain, I know you might be thinking, why Mark Twain? We're talking about digital space. You know, obviously there was not social media when Mark Twain was around, but he did say kind of an interesting quote. And I think he said something along the line of, the secret of getting ahead is getting started. And the secret of getting started is breaking your complex, overwhelming task into small, manageable tasks, and then starting with the first one. And that's kind of how we approach social media at the Defense Information School. Social media can be this large, intimidating faction of communication. And, you know, it can be a little bit overwhelming at times. And we think if we break it down to smaller chunks and start just with the basic principles behind it, you'll start to find success in those things. And so that's why we mentioned Mark Twain, and that's kind of how we approach social media. And that's how I want to address it today. We kind of have to break it down and start to think about how people operate and behave in this digital space, and then how we can apply it to our communication strategies at our home units or our home organizations, or as a command presence, or as a command leader. So it was Julie Dye that once said that the new reality of what digital is, the new reality of digital is the result of a scale of change in how people choose to communicate. It's how they choose to watch television, how they learn, how they bank, how they shop, how they organize their lives, how they communicate with their family and friends. All of those are this new aspect of digital media. And for us in the military or across the DoD, we have to learn how we can meet people where they are, meet people's expectations on how they're using their devices and how they're receiving their information in order to operate more effectively using social media. So I think if we start again to break down those much larger tasks and break it down into a simpler form, we can kind of get ahead. For us, being a leader in the digital age, I mean, it means you really need to start to understand the technology that's being used, how people are actually using social media, how people are actually using their time and their space in order to move forward and to communicate. We've got to understand these factions just like we understand HR and finances, and be able to advise and counsel either our leaders or the people within our unit on how they should be operating and maintaining a presence on social media. If we have an understanding, or if we break down that digital understanding in means that show that we're confident in what we're doing, and we can inform people on how to better communicate using these platforms, then we find ourselves in a better position. And I think that's where digital leadership comes into play. And as a digital leader, I believe the first question you have to ask yourself is why. You've got to find out the why we're on social media. Why do you want to be on these platforms in the first place? What is it that we're trying to communicate to our audience? What is it that how can we further the conversation? What is the strategy around why we want to be on social media? In fact, do we need to be on social media at all? Do we need to be on these multiple platforms? Do you want to be effective on Facebook or on Twitter? Am I choosing Instagram over Flickr or another site? You know, why do we want to be here? We've got to release our inner 4-year-old and just keep asking those questions. Why? If we can get down to the why and why we're on social media and what it is that we want to accomplish, then we can start to address the things that we need to do to be effective on these platforms. What mindset are you trying to change? What behavior are you trying to change? What are you trying to affect in this space? Does your strategy support your overall unit goals and missions? You know, all of those things should be the basis of why you want to be on this space. And if we approach it from that aspect, then I think we can again start to break things down into much smaller portions and address it or attack it as we need to attack it. And so today I want to talk to you about being a smarter digital leader, or smart digital leadership. And I use that acronym SMART just to kind of make it a little bit easier to move along. But we're going to talk about simplicity, mapping out your plan, what the activity is on your platforms, what resources you have in your office or in your organization, and then maintaining or staying true to yourself and who you are as an organization, what you're trying to accomplish. If you use this acronym, I think you can start to approach social media and look at your strategy and see if you're actually achieving the goals or the things that you're trying to achieve using social media as a communication platform. So the first thing is being simple. Once you need to really accept the fact that you're not going to be able to address everyone or achieve everything that you need to do. You're not going to be able to talk to everyone using social media. A lot of people kind of approach social media and say, well, everybody's there, I need to talk to everyone. And that's not necessarily the case. I think you need to break your social media communication down into just its simplest, smallest forms. And if you look at it in this aspect, I think you start with your audience, who it is that you're trying to talk to. You then go to your messaging, and then you think about the engagement on your platforms. And so first is your audience. I think the biggest challenge we face in the DoD, or a lot of people face, this is smaller companies and everything, is identifying who your actual audience is. And I think that starts with who you are as an organization and what it is that you're hoping to accomplish. Everyone that's watching is a part of a unit or organization that is the best in the world at what they do. You have a niche. There's something that is special about your organization. And there are people who are going to be seeking you or looking for you in this digital space. In fact, I think you really need to think about who looks for you in real life. You know, what type of people are attracted to your organization in real life? You know, what is the mindset of those individuals that are looking for you? Let's take this forum, for instance. I'm talking about social media. There's an audience of people out there who have registered for this course or watching online or watching wherever that is interested in social media. And if you're not interested in social media, it's okay. I don't necessarily have to force people to pay attention to social media. Look at me, I'm talking about social media. If that's not your interest, you don't have to worry. That's not my target audience. What I'm doing is I'm talking to a wide variety of people from across the globe right now that is interested in this particular topic in social media. You have to look at your organization the same way. How are people, what is it that you can offer people that people are going to look for you in the digital space for? And if you really look at your digital audience, they're broken down, or the ones that are helpful to us anyway, are broken down into kind of three factions. First, you have your what we call seekers. Those are people that are online, they're in the digital space, and they're actually looking for information. If you're into social media, you're out and you're using Google or you're using, whatever means that you have to look for information on social media, whatever that is. That makes you a seeker. The next phase is kind of amplifiers. Those are those people that once they find this information, I find that it's useful enough that I can amplify it on my channel and share it with my friends and my followers or whomever. And so for me, if you follow me on, say, LinkedIn, since I kind of market myself or brand myself as a social media ambassador, what I do is I go around, I seek the internet. When I find information that is, I think, useful to me and useful to people who may follow me, I will amplify that message. I will take that message and I will share it on my page. And so you're looking for people, if you're an infantry training battalion, if you're some type of schoolhouse or training facility, you're looking for people that are seeking your information and then will take that information and amplify it a little bit further. And then you've got people who are joiners. Those are the people that will subscribe to your page, they'll follow you, and those are also seekers and amplifiers, obviously, but the joiners are ones that are truly dedicated to your channel. They're truly dedicated to the things that you're saying. And so again, if you're into social media, you decide, hey, I'm going to follow this guy. I'm going to subscribe to his channel. And now he's providing me with information on a daily basis or a weekly basis in some type of battle rhythm that I can use and I can amplify to my audience. And of course, out of that, so now I've got a much broader audience that's looking for me about social media. I've got people who are seeking, amplifying, and joining my page. And then I'm building upon that. It's all based on who I am as an organization and what I'm doing. And then I can further segment that audience. If I'm looking at like an older demographic or a younger demographic, then I can decide whether or not I want to use Facebook versus Instagram versus Snapchat versus et cetera, et cetera. So I think one of the biggest challenges in social media really is the audience and deciding who it is that you actually want to talk to and then delivering that on a consistent basis. Next is the messaging, and we mentioned a little bit, I talked a little bit about it a few seconds ago, but with messaging, You then can frame my messaging on what I want to say to my audience and how they're engaging, how they're interacting, how they're responding. What are they doing with my message? You know, do they prefer to see smaller, shorter videos if I'm on a site like, say, Instagram or Twitter? Or do they want something that's kind of like this long documentary style if I'm using a site like YouTube or Vimeo? You know, that's how you start to mold your messaging to understand and truly get after certain segments of my audience. And again, my audience isn't everyone. I'm further breaking it down so that I know every time I make a post, I'm directing my overall messaging toward a specific audience. And I can do that and start to hone in how I create that message based on the engagement on my platforms. So if I'm on Facebook and more people tend to communicate when I do maybe like a blog post versus like a video post, or when I post a link or what have you, I can look at the engagement from my audience and then start to craft my messaging around my particular platform, geared on the audience that I'm doing. And so that's why simplicity is so important. If you break this thing down and really look at those three factions of simplicity, then that will help you start to build a stronger social media strategy. Next is mapping. And I think for mapping, it's not the journey that it's really about figuring out where it is that I want to go. You know, what is my final destination? What is the value of, say, a follower or my audience members or, you know, my communications? You know, where is it that I'm trying to end up? So I've got to set goals for myself. I've got to have a strategy involved to get there. And then, you know, even the best laid out plans can sometimes fall short. And so I need to have some type of rapid contingency plan. What happens if? What happens if we all come together and we decide, hey, this is the audience we want, we're going to deliver this message and it's going to go great, and it doesn't? What happens when, you know, we fall short and we fail our expectations, or we fail the expectations of those who are following us, and it goes wrong? You know, what do we do in those situations? So I think you have to build a rapid contingency plan. How are we going to engage? How are we going to talk to people? And so that becomes a part of your overall strategy. You need to decide, it's no longer, gone are the days of push information. You know, it's no longer about what it is that I want to say to people. It's what people want to hear from me. What are the expectations that I'm hearing? And am I meeting those expectations? Am I meeting that in my overall goal? If I'm a media entity and I'm trying to get news and information out to the public, how am I doing that on a consistent basis? If my goal is to get big media to pay attention to something that I'm writing over here, or if my goal is to get my photos seen by a larger group of people so they can understand the mission that I'm doing and the things that I'm carrying out, you know, if those are my goals, then how do I measure those goals? What are my strategies to get there? How am I using social media to amplify my message? You know, at the end of the day, the goal it's not about being good at social media. Really, it's about being good at what your organization does or what your organization accomplishes, and then using social media to inform our public of that's what I'm doing. And so if you really get at it like that, then you can start to build a stronger social media strategy and putting that in place and having those rapid contingency plans, so that when I put this post out in the comments, the narrative starts to get away from me. How do I redirect? How do I re-engage and reenact and make sure that people are on the task that I'm trying to get them to convey? How am I making sure that my goals are being met? If I can do that and deliver that to my leadership and to the troops below me, then we can make sure that everybody's on the same page and we can actively participate on social media the way that it's supposed to be done. And that actually leads me right into activity. Activity is a pretty big part of the social media strategy and the social media plan. It's what drives what happens with your messaging and your information on social media. That engagement, that getting people to share your information or comment on your post or whatever that may be, that activity is what pushes your messaging out on social. And so if you're just publishing things just to publish them and there's no activity on your posts, then the algorithms are actually working against you. These social media channels, the social media network, these digital networks are designed for engagement. They're designed to drive two-way communication between two or more people. And a lot of times what we find ourselves doing is just kind of using social media as our own personal bulletin board, or it's just our own little brag board, right? So this happened, I want to post it out, and then we're not having any activity or any engagement on our platforms. And that what it's doing is you're basically just forcing your information into people's faces. And if they're not interested, if you haven't honed in on the audience that you're trying to do, or figured out what it is that you're trying to say or what your goals are, then that activity is going to end up hurting your brand and hurting who you are as an organization. It's going to hurt what you're trying to achieve on social media. So that activity is important. And we've got to not only, a lot of us work in 1-2-man shops. It becomes a really big lift to try to do all of this on your own. And so a lot of times we need to be able to enable others to kind of take some action as well. You know, what does that policy look like? What does engagement strategies look like? What does content planning look like? You know, we've got to decide what all those things are so that we can be more effective in these platforms. For leaders, we have to become more involved. That means maybe if, you know, the troops are thinking about doing something, some type of video or deliver some type of safety message, get involved with that. You know, become a part of it. Don't shy away from the use of social media, but instead empower others to bring everyone along, and then you can start to use social media for what its true purpose is, and that is, again, to communicate our message and to further our message that we are doing some good, or we're doing this thing or that thing. We're informing others of the things that we do and the things that we do well. We become then the subject matter expert on the thing that we're talking about. And then, you know, again, we talked a little bit about contingency plans. Don't necessarily shy away from the negative, right? We want to learn from the positive stuff, focus on the positive things, but we also want to take the opportunity to learn about the negative things that happens. If there is a misstep, you know, let's not be so quick to just kind of, hey, I told you so. I told you we shouldn't be on social media. I told you we shouldn't be in this digital space. Really, we have to kind of learn from it, take it in for what it is. If we need to apologize, do that, and then move forward. You learn from that mistake, and then you hopefully build on your strategy and make sure that you're doing the things correctly to help you avoid that in the future. And that kind of leads me into resources. Social media is a big lift. Here we are having a 3-day conference talking about just bits and pieces of social media along the way. Hopefully there won't be a session that things will be repeated. I mean, you'll probably hear some kind of keywords about audiences and engagements and activity and things like that will probably be repeated. But each session is individual, because we want you to pick up a little bit. And then even after these 3 days, you're not suddenly going to be this social media guru that's going to fix all the problems of the world. You know, this social media is a big lift. It is a challenge. It is not just about posting. It's not just about pushing information out to the audience. There's a lot of steps involved. And so resourcing is important. Resourcing is important. That's the people that you have, that's the equipment that you have, that's the planning that's needed to put forth a social media strategy. That's the evaluation or the afterthought of looking back and saying, all right, was this effective? Did we reach our goals? You know, everybody, if you look at your analytics and your numbers, you're going to have the same kind of ups and downs. The key is, how do I evaluate that and then try to establish some type of battle rhythm that's going to help me improve in the future? It takes time. That's all a part of the resourcing. You know, if you're not affording people opportunity to truly sit down and plan out a social media strategy, you know, to research what you need to do to look at these platforms individually and decide, is this the platform that we want to be on? Is this something that we can just do on our own website? Is this something that we could just do as like an email blast or something? Or should we be on social media? I mean, all of that takes research. And then to plan that out, to implement that, and then to further evaluate that, it all takes time. And if you're a one-man shop, or if people are putting that weight on you, or if you're out here and you're a 1 or 2 man shop and you have 5 or 6 platforms, maybe it's time to start to reevaluate that. You know, maybe we do a social media audit and we look at where we are as an organization and where we want to be in the next 5-6 months and how we achieve those goals. You know, so you really have to look at your resources and allow for people or give people, afford people the opportunity to be able to go in and put forth the time and effort that's necessary to be effective on social. And then the final aspect, I believe, is just being true to yourself. I talked a little bit about understanding who you are as an organization and finding your niche, because again, your audience will gravitate to whatever that is. That is the world that we live in. People are seeking out your information. They're looking for things about your organization that is important to them. And it's not just in your front door. It's not just around your base or in the local neighborhood. This is a global reaching aspect. And so we should get away from, or try to shy away from, hey, I want to talk to the people in the barracks, or I want to talk to the people right here, in my front yard. Really, you're using a megaphone to speak out what your organization does and what you do, what your commander's intent is. So define who you are as an organization. What is the thing that makes you special? What is the thing that is where is your niche lie? If it's social media, and that is my niche, or the thing that I'm the expert at, then I should be able to amplify that message using these social media platforms. I should be able to use sites like LinkedIn or YouTube or whatever to further or further strengthen that mission or that goal that I have about defining myself in this particular space. Your infantry training battalion, tank battalion, a recruit depot, if you're a schoolhouse, whatever it is, you're the best in the world at whatever it is that you're trying to do or trying to accomplish. That's who you are. Be true to that and maintain that, stay in that lane. And you can use then social media and the social media platforms to further your message. Niche is the new norm, especially in a digital space. You've got all these smaller groups of people that are gravitated to certain things. If you're interested in poetry or comic books or sports or whatever, you gravitate to those things. You seek out that information. You become a seeker. And then if that information is being given to you on a consistent basis in the manner or the means that you like it, guess what? You become an amplifier. You start to share that information with others, right? Oh, wow, this is the sports team that happened the other day. Or here's the great poem that I saw the other day, et cetera, et cetera. So now you're spreading that message further and further. And if it's something that's given to you consistent, and you're really tuned into it and you want more of it, you're going to become a joiner. You're going to become a subscriber. You're going to become a follower. That is how the digital world works. And so we've got to tap into that from our end. Who are the people that are interested in what the Marine Corps is doing, or what the Air Force is doing, or what the Army is doing? Who are those people? What do they look like? What are their thought processes? What are the things that they like? How are they consuming their information? How are they communicating online? How are they communicating on Instagram versus Twitter? Use that information, again, staying true to myself, to push my information out into this digital space. Being personal in this space is so powerful today. In a world where there are bots and misinformation and disinformation, if you can find your niche and find what's really true to yourself, and then bring that persona to your communication and to your engagement, that's huge. That's huge. People are more likely to engage with you in those situations. They're more likely to spread your message in those situations. They're more likely to stick around and hang around. If you're just a shell, or if you're just pushing out information, how are you any different than any bot or any troll that's out there that's just pushing out information, trying to kind of stir the pot? We've got to think about social media for what it is, and the digital world for what it is. Social is beyond just these platforms. You still got a website. You still have email. You still have in-person meetings. You still have other forms of communication. Television still exists. Web pages still exist. Newsletters still exist. Social media is just a small portion of your overall communication strategy. And once we dive in on that, truly identify what audience we want to talk to on social, then I can use my stakeholders or I can put into place or start to think about my stakeholders, my internal audience, my external audience, and how I want to communicate with them using other channels or other means. And so just to kind of wrap up what we talked about today, again, just being a smart digital leader, being smart in this digital space, keeping things as simple as possible. Success really is the result of simplification and focus. Focus on the one thing that you're good at. Focus on your niche. Focus on what makes you different and how you can tell that story different from your point of view or from your perspective. Map out your goals. What are the goals and visions that are needed to get you where you want to be? What is your end state? What is the value of the things that you're doing in this digital space or on social media? What type of activity is happening on your page? Is there engagement at all? How do we want to further boost that engagement? And what that means to me on the platform, that again goes with research and planning and implementation, evaluating, look at the activity that's happening so that I can further build the content that I'm pushing out to my audience. What resources are available to me in my office? Do I have the time and the patience to put into a social media strategy? Am I actually evaluating the things that we're doing and putting out on a regular basis? Your success is dependent on your digital reputation. And then maintaining or being true to yourself. Be true to your passions. Be true to what sets you apart as an organization. What is so special about being in the Navy? What is so special about being in the Marine Corps and the Air Force and the Army? What are those things that are so special about your unit or your organization? The thing that they can get from you and your organization that they can't get anywhere else. Those are the things that you start to focus on. And those are the things that you start to use social media in this digital space to further spread your message. And so I just want to conclude by, again, going back to Mark Twain. He kind of went further and said that 20 years from now, you'll be more disappointed by the things that you didn't do than by the ones that you did. So throw off the bowline, sail away from the safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sails, explore, dream, discover. It's the same approach that you need to use with social media. Don't let this ship pass you by. Don't let this opportunity to communicate and engage with your audience pass you by. Don't look back 20 years from now and now just start to realize that, oh, wow, maybe we can start to use these platforms effectively, or maybe we should have been engaging with our audience all along, or maybe we should have been posting this type of information on this platform versus that platform. Don't let that pass you by. Make sure that you're looking at these platforms, looking at your opportunity to communicate in this digital space and using it to the best of your advantage. And for those of you who may be interested, I do have a list of resources that you can kind of look into. Some books that I kind of have decided or that I've looked at over the past few years and have helped me to kind of guide my path along social media. The first being Social Media Metrics Secrets by John Lovett. This is a great read on evaluation of social media analytics for those of you who want just a deeper dive into the numbers. Like War by P.W. Singer and Emerson Brooking. That's a great book that discusses the algorithms and how your adversaries and our allies are actually using social media to their advantage. War in 140 Characters by David War in 140 Characters by David P. I can't say his last name, but another good read. What Happens in Vegas Stays on YouTube by Eric Qualman. Social Media and Public Relations by Deirdre Breckenridge. Social Media Rules of Engagement by Nicole Machajic. The Infinite Game, which isn't a social media book, but Simon Sinek's book is really well written and really well informed on how you could set goals for yourself and establish those goals. Jab, 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 Right Hook by Gary Vaynerchuk. And then for the latest social media news and trends, I always go to Social Media Today. That's a website that kind of accumulates information from around the globe regarding social media and kind of puts it to you in kind of a blog form. I know it was a lot of information, guys, and it's in a short amount of time. And it's not the end all be all. I don't have all the answers, but I've got a few. And so if you guys have questions or comments, concerns, feel free to reach out to me. You can shoot my office an email anytime about any of the subjects we're about to cover over the next few days at socialmedia@dinfos.edu. You can also join us on the Facebook group page where we'll be furthering the conversation as the days go along. So and we'll post that link for you guys as well. So any questions, comments, concerns? I hope you learned a lot today. I hope I kind of covered some of the questions that you might have. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference, and that'll be it. I'll be seeing you around. Thanks for joining us.